I grew up in a town where it's weird if you don't live for the weekend. You get the absolute piss taken out of you for doing anything out of the ordinary. And most people who are from this town live a pretty identical life, even if they don't want to live that life. To a guy that's living and travelling all over the world and running a coaching brand for high performers, execs and entrepreneurs that want to live the life exactly as I do in body, mindset, lifestyle and business. So before we get stuck into my origin story today, make sure that you've hit subscribe to the channel. So if you haven't guessed already from my accent, I'm Scottish and I'm from the West Coast in a town called Irvine in North Ayrshire. It's a very beautiful part of the world and I'm super proud to be Scottish. It's one of the most unique places. I feel like the Scottish and the Irish especially, our accent stands out like a sore thumb and people are just very interested to meet you. And it's weird because wherever you go, there always seems to be a Scottish person wherever you go. And we've got such a tiny population as well. There's only 5 million of us, and in London there's 11 million people, 12 million maybe. So yeah, Scotland's a pretty small, unique place, and unique for a lot of different reasons. I obviously touched base on it already, but drinking culture's big, partying's big. Like, it's notorious even from anywhere in the world when you speak to people because of whiskey and beer. Everyone's always like, oh, you guys like a drink, don't you? So it's very ingrained in our mindset and our identity to be someone who does live for the weekend, and there is so many people that as they get older, they either continue doing that or they make it a big part of their life, or they really break away from that as well. And for me, it's definitely been one that's the later. Like, I never felt at school like I fitted in. I can't really explain it. I'm an only child and I grew up in a household where I was showered with love. Like, I absolutely love my parents so much. I am so grateful for them and I'm still very close to them to this day, which I'm also super grateful for as well. But being an only child, like, definitely can make you feel a little bit isolated. I didn't have any siblings. I had 2 cousins that were basically like, one of them was my best friend and felt like my brother, Nicky. And for me, I never ever felt like I fitted in from a young age. I always felt like this little shy, bashful kid. And I remember in primary 2 at school, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, I actually played bashful, and I think the teacher put me as bashful for a reason because I was so shy, and I wouldn't say I was introverted, but I think maybe as a child I was, but I think every child is a bit, aren't they? They're just learning their place in the world. They don't really understand their emotions. But for me, I definitely bought into the fact that I was just a grey guy, and this is something that I learned in the military and it really suited my personality. I wasn't bad at anything, but I wasn't great at anything, and I was just always someone that wasn't unpopular and I wasn't super popular. That probably described me super well growing up. And in my teens, this is where the feeling of actually knowing that I had a deep burning desire and purpose to do something big, because I loved movies, I loved certain characters. Growing up, there was a lot of different movies I loved, but I always just loved a movie where there was like a main character. And I suppose I was a bit of a non-player character growing up, and I really loved the main character and I always aspired to be them. All the way to my time in the military, to when I really started to look up to people in roles of leadership, certain roles. And it's weird, it's almost like I had this belief in myself that I was destined for more, but every time I took something on, I would always be happy to just be participating. I played football, I done karate, I got my black belt at karate, I'd done it for 9-10 years, but I was average. I was just average at everything that I'd done. I wasn't bad. It wasn't that I wasn't committed to anything. I just really resided to the fact that this is who I was. I wasn't a main character. I wasn't the most popular. I wasn't destined to be the best fighter. I wasn't destined to be the best football player. And it's quite funny as well. Like, I remember just wanting to fit in. I remember just wanting to be someone. And I don't know if this goes back to being an only child or feeling like there was this sort of like connection piece that I was missing or whatever it was. I don't know what that is, but I remember just being like so grateful to participate in things, and it's the complete opposite now. And I suppose the mindset that I have now is probably born from there, because I spent so long settling, so long just happy to be taking part. You know how people take the piss out of you get the participation medal? I think I would have been ecstatic about the participation medal when I was a little boy, because it was all about just taking part for me. That's probably the best way to really explain my childhood. And then one thing that I really did love growing up, and I've still had to do a lot of work on to this day, is I was shown a lot of love through food. And like a lot of people, especially in Western society, celebrations, cakes, good food, going out for food, getting a takeaway in on a Saturday night. For me, it was definitely my key reward centre. I'd never really found my higher purpose in anything else, so I found a lot of comfort and joy in food. I was never obese when I was younger, but I would always go through periods of it being a little bit chubbier, and then I had a very unathletic, soft body. I didn't have any genetic superiority. So I'm kind of trying to paint the picture of who I was. I was a kind little boy that was showing a lot of love, very, very like big on manners that my parents taught me as well. I always said please, I always said thank you, I always wanted to be kind to people. To this day, it's definitely someone I just want to really embody being. But fast forward the clock to obviously secondary school, was just that typical grey guy all the way throughout. Never really stood out, my grades weren't anything unbelievable. I never felt like school gave me my potential. It never allowed me to essentially see my best self. Anyway, I always had this feeling I'm destined to do something great. I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely destined to do something great and it'll figure itself out. And the military just really stood out to me because I just felt like it made me feel part of something. I really loved that sort of institution. I really loved the fact that you had a bit of credibility. There was a big identity that went with that. There was a lot of valor that went with that as well. So I joined the military in 2017. No, not 2017, 2011. When I was 17, I left in 2017. That's the details right there. But I joined when I was 17 years old, and it was trial by fire, man. I learned so much about myself. You done 9 weeks of basic training, and I grew up a lot in that. I got a lot of independence in there. It really taught me a lot about turning up, discipline, because I had no discipline. I went through a little bit of a badass phase, and I've not really touched into that. I got arrested for drink driving. No one really knows that as well. When I was 17, I wasn't actually drink driving. I was sleeping in my car drunk. I had a few parties in the house. My car got wrecked at a party, and my parents were worried about me because I started to just get a bit of a taste for a bit of a buzz. I was bored. I was understimulated, man. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't interested in school. I stayed on to 6th year. I knew I was going to join the military, and it was like I was just waiting on a lot of things to happen. And in that time before I joined the military, I was starting to just do things that were just stupid, like getting really, really drunk. And that continued into being in the military, by the way. Yeah, I joined the military, and it was great for me. It was really, really good. It gave me a high level, a sense of pride, and it was excitement, and there was so much going on. But very, very quickly of being in the military, I really, really started to kick into that boredom. It's like university, but it's not university. Like, it's like being on freshers every single week. You're at a base with a bunch of people that are young, that are getting money for the first time, and that's when a lot of habits that were already there started to intensify more. I started smoking around that time. I used to smoke, be a full-time smoker. I think at the height of it, I'd smoke like 15 cigarettes a day. First thing every morning, I'd have a cigarette. It's crazy. And yeah, man, I literally became a party guy, a military guy, and that's when I really found like training a lot more consistently as well, which is weird. You're training, you're around all these people that are bringing out all these parts of you. You're becoming the party guy, you're becoming the military guy, you're becoming the guy that takes his training more serious than he ever has. And obviously, if you're doing this in all these other areas, they're never ever getting the best, are they? Like, let's be honest, like your health is not going to be the best, you're not going to be the best in your work, you're not going to be the best person, you're not going to be the best in relationships if you're drunk all the time. And that was pretty much my life for the first few years. It really, really was. And a couple of years into being in the military, I wasn't happy. I went through a few periods where I would honestly say I was depressed. I'm not surprised because of my lifestyle. I was working shift at the time. I was part of QRA shift at RFA Bulmer. Quick reaction alert. We were basically there. My job, without really going into it, was UK air surveillance and defence. We were the surveillance side, and then we were part of fighter control as well. So all your sort of anti-9/11 sort of stuff, protecting the airspace in the UK. Boring as hell, man. So boring. Like it's just an operations room. Anyway, I spent a lot of years there, and I was always at this point where I always said I was never going to be a lifer. I was never going to do this for the rest of my life, and I would always say I'm going to do something else. But there was a part of me I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I just was like, I'm getting paid here. I had the stability there. I had good friends there. I was unfulfilled, and I probably was at this point for a good few years. A big turning point for me was 2014. I went on my first ever deployment on my 21st birthday, and I went out to the United Arab Emirates, to a US Air Force base, and I was part of a coalition unit at the 727th Expeditionary Air Control Centre, which was probably the highlight of my entire career. It was so cool. was so cool, man. I say it's cool. It opened my eyes up in a lot of ways, and I'll kind of touch base on that as well. But we were, at the time in 2014, there was the height of ISIL, and Islamic State, and basically we were managing the airspace over Iraq, Syria, and the Arabian Gulf. So we were managing the entire airspace for all coalition forces, and it was one of the most responsible jobs. Like, my job right now is very responsible, changing, saving folks' lives and helping folk level up, but very, very intense in the ops room. A lot of crazy stuff happening, like overseeing an operational war zone, managing all sorts of stuff. I won't go into it because I know how much I'm allowed to actually speak about. Like, I know I can speak about certain things, but a lot of stuff happened. To give you some context, I was actually working the day that the Jordanian pilot got shot down on console. And it was sad, man. It was sad. Yeah, it was crazy, crazy stuff. And all sorts of stuff was happening. So it really opened my eyes up to like war, made me question a lot of things, and also done a lot for me from a confidence standpoint, a personal standpoint. There was only 9 Brits on that base, and there was like 4,500, 5,000, I don't know, personnel or something. And yeah, it was a really good time working with the Americans. There was Australians there as well. It really matured me. It really, I'd done that for 4 months, longest time I spent away from home, saved up a little bit of money, met some great people, experienced a different culture, travelled and stuff, and it just opened my eyes up. And that's when I really started going, right, what do I need to do? What's my next steps? What's my next moves? What needs to happen right here? And I started to get this itch. Like that thing that I said from a young age, like, what is my potential here? I know that I've got a potential here. Around that time I came back, and it was the first time my boss at the time, Flight Lieutenant Richardson, who I'm always super grateful for, and I'll send him this video actually, because he was the first ever boss leader that I really, really respected, because of just, he was a good leader, he was a good man, and he was great at his job, and I seen a lot of myself in him. So the right words from the right person. And I remember it, and I was in the ops room, it was like a night shift once, and I think I'd been out in Newcastle or something, and it was like rough. I was talking to him, just chatting away, and we'd talk a lot about things, and we'd be in the operations room. There'd always be a minimum amount of people in there, and as I said, like 3 AM in the UK, there's not a lot of aircraft, there's nothing really happening. And we'd be sitting there talking, and I remember he was just like, why are you not an officer? And he gives me chills talking about it now, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, why are you not an officer, Kristian? It's just like, my brain was like, does not compute, what do you mean? And it was probably the first time that someone really seen a potential in me that I never really seen in myself. And it just made me start going, right, it's time to make some change. Someone else can actually see me do something here and do something for myself. So around that time, I actually started applying for different jobs. And I always had this dream of being a WISOP, a weapons systems operator. And that's actually what Flight Lieutenant John Richardson's done in the Navy prior to coming into the Air Force, and he told me it was like the best job in the world. He worked on, I think it was Lynx helicopters, and he was just like, the best job ever. He's like, the experiences, the things that you do, super dangerous as well, very, very dangerous. But I just felt like it had my name written all over it, and I went through the application process. It's very intense, it's very, very laborious. You become a non-commissioned aircrew, and you would go straight up to sergeant. I was a SAC at the time, and it was all very daunting. It was all very scary. It was you had to go through aptitude testing, you had to go through an interview process. And anyway, I started going through. I got accepted to go ahead for it. He recommended, done all the stuff, and I started going through that. I suppose it's like being back in school where you're just putting all your eggs in one basket. And I remember at the time it was quite a long, intense process, and you weren't guaranteed it until you get in. And I wanted to specifically be aircrew on the Chinooks, and that wasn't even guaranteed. The Chinooks is the helicopter with the 2 rotators. And I wanted to be WISOP on there. So you'd be in all sorts of operations, you'd be in all sorts of different places, you'd be anywhere and everywhere in the world, working with special forces, like extractions, drop-offs, like an insane job. And I remember like one of the officers when I went for it, and I'm super grateful that he told me this, because I don't think a lot of people do tell you, he's like, this is a very dangerous job, Kristian. He's like, if you go ahead with this, he's like, this is a very, very dangerous job. And I remember just being pure young, like, yeah, I want to do that, man. But fair play to that guy for saying that to me. I can't even remember his name. But yeah, I think of these helicopters that are in the thick of it, man. Like very, very dangerous. If anyone's seen the movie Lone Survivor, like about the American Special Forces, that's one of the helicopters that like got taken down in that. Like they are doing extractions, crazy stuff. Anyway, I remember having a conversation, because if you didn't get through, I knew I didn't want to be a aerospace systems operator anymore. That's the job that I'd done, and I knew I wanted to leave that. But I had a conversation with myself, and I went, Kristian, at this point I'd been in for like 4 and a bit years or whatever it was. I went, if you do not get past the application process for this, you leave the military, Because I always had it in the back of my mind that the only other job that I would do is I'd become a personal trainer, and I'll come on to that. But I was like, right, because when you don't pass and you come out, you have to wait another 6 months. And at this point, I had been through definitely bouts of depression and with my lifestyle, and I didn't want to live in a block anymore, and I felt lonely. Like, I remember being really upset at one point because I felt so lonely. Like, felt so lonely in the block. I was at RAF Warrington. It gets me a bit upset talking about it, and I remember just being like, wasn't in a relationship, like, wasn't living a life that I really was happy in. Like, I was living for the weekend. Like, I pretty much worked and I went out at the weekend, and then when none of my mates were there because they went home, I was on my own, and I went to the gym and stuff, but that was it. I just felt there was no depth to my life, man. I remember just being like, what the hell am I doing? So I went done the aptitude testing and stuff, and I failed it. I failed it for WizUp. I actually passed for air traffic controller, airspace systems operator. I've got the document. I can't remember where it is. But I passed for these other great jobs, and I was like, nah, I wanted to be a WizUp. I'm not settling for anything else. And you told yourself, if you were leaving, you were going to leave. But I done what I always done, and I got distracted, and the next thing that came along, and I got a post to Cyprus. I got to go out to Cyprus and stuff, and I was like, always at this point, fighting with myself, man, like, it'll get better. If you do this, it'll get better. I was never taking action on my goals, and I was always waiting on things to get better for me. And honestly, like, if anyone's watching this right now, like, stop getting distracted by holidays, like, promotions. Like, if you know what you need to do, like, imagine your life was a movie. Like, what would the theatre be screaming at you right now? What would the person be screaming at you to do? Go and do that. Because for me, it was like, just leave. You're not happy here. And anyway, I had a good time in Cyprus. Went back to my same shenanigans, drinking, partying. And then there was this full circle moment in 2016 where I had been in Cyprus, and I came back and I went to Ibiza, and I literally was partying. I was taking drugs, man. I was obliterating myself. And I was in the Highlander in San Antonio. My full entire left-hand side went numb. I think I had a heart attack. Like, no joke, right? Full left side went cold, couldn't feel anything. I'd been up for like 2 days. And I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, why? That you always get a bit of potential in yourself. You always get somewhere, and I'm 22 at this point. You just always get somewhere, and you keep doing the same thing. Like, go and do something about it. And I came back, and I put my notice in. I put my 6 month notice in, and that's what they do. The fuckers, man. They make it 6 months to a year that you have to put in a notice because it makes people so fearful to leave. And I'd done it. I was like 2 fingers up to the man, and I was like, right, I'm going to become a personal trainer. And that's exactly what I'd done. I literally started my course, locked in on it, and really just like started gaining a bit of traction and momentum. And fast forward the clock, I exited the military in March 2017. I left the gates. And it was the weirdest feeling ever, man. It was so weird. Like, this, my entire identity in life, everything was like the military, man. And I'm so proud of being part of the military and stuff. Like, amazing friends in there, like amazing time, amazing experiences. But it was like, it's time to go on to the next chapter, Kristian. And it was so scary, but it was so fulfilling as well at the same time. So I went to my personal trainer course, and I was like, right, what do I do now? What happens now? So I remember, I think I had about $3,000 in the bank, pure buzzing. Like, oh, I've got 2 more pays to come in or something, pays of about £1,800 a month or something. They paid you peanuts, man. They paid you nothing. Nah, I wasn't getting paid as little as that, maybe like 2,000 something. And I had a little bit of money there, a couple of grand. And that was it. They give you 3 months of pay or something, 2 months, whatever year. I didn't even have terminal leave because I didn't even do 6 years. So I left after 5.5 years. And that's when I started my journey to become a personal trainer. This is when it started for me, guys. This is when it started clicking for me. I felt like my entire life I'd always be bound by the rules of everyone else. I was always in a game of chess, but it wasn't my game of chess. It was never my game of chess. It was always someone else's. School, sports, the military. There was always this red tape. And I remember I became a personal trainer, and the excitement that I had that you could make content, that you could like, there was just possibility there, right? And oh man, I remember just being so excited by it, and I started really following different people at this point. And when I done that, it really just opened my eyes up to what you were capable of. And I don't know if Jamie Alderton will ever watch this video, but Jay Alderton, shout out and massive respect to him. The guy was just such a big influence to me because I followed him. He was a Grenade athlete. He had his own gym, a massive following, and he still like posts great content to this day. And the guy's ex-military, and I just was like, right, this guy is just built an amazing life and brand, and he's obviously very successful. He's got great clients. And you know what? At this point, it was never just about money for me. It was just about success and recognition and just achieving something. It was never ever like, full transparency. Even like I didn't even know Jimmy Alderton is obviously clearly a multi-millionaire. I didn't even know that at the time. I was just like, oh, he must be doing all right. He must be making a bit of money. Like, that's good for him. Nah, man, like this guy's obviously uber successful, but what it done for me is it let me see a pathway that there was a potential there, and then the rest is history, man. But like always, I went back into my same habits. I got complacent. I was making more money than I'd ever made. I was making like $3,000 a month, man. Like I had a full book of clients, and then I got to the point in 2019 where I was like, you're doing it again, you're partying, you're drinking more and stuff. And then the lockdown happened, man. The lockdown happened, and the lockdown was just the best thing for me. It just removed all the distractions, allowed me to just get back into a better routine with sleep, look after myself better, get in better shape, and just level up, man. And it was just like, it was like someone laid down a red carpet in front of me and was like, go. And I was like, let's go, man, let's go. And like honestly, that's when I started investing a lot more in myself. That's when I started working with different coaches and mentors. And it really just started paving the way to where I am right now. And it was a huge turning point for me. So I would probably say in my entire journey, the sort of three big moments of inflection for me were that first deployment in my time in the military. It wasn't even joining the military was a big one, but it was that big a deployment where I just came back and it just gave me a different perspective in life without even realising it. Having a heart attack, I think so. And then the lockdown. Like honestly, there's this amazing opportunity for me, and then that's when I really started understanding what it was to build a brand, and the Project Level Up was born, and then a year and a half later, that's Ready for Anything was born. And then I've just became so engrossed in this life and this lifestyle, and I'm just showing people the blueprint and exactly how to do it. Like I had a great conversation with someone the other day. The method that I have created inside RFA is just the blueprint for all of the success that I've experienced in my life, athletically, mentally, like physically, professionally. This allowed me to become someone that was zero to Ironman, that allowed me to build a business that's allowed me to have complete freedom and autonomy and so much stability financially, and work with people that I want to work with, and it's just given me absolutely everything, man. Like, and I just want to show more people the path and the blueprint that you can actually go on when you just step into being that person. Because the term grey man that I touched on earlier on was a term that I heard in my time in the forces, and it was just get your head down and be a grey man. And it was great for me, because when I was in basic training, I didn't want to be anyone that was noticed. I didn't want to be the leader. I didn't want to be the person that was getting the medals. I didn't care. I was just there to get it done. And I embodied that grey man mentality for a huge part of my life, and it's been a lot of the fuel behind all of the success I've experienced in my life. But never ever settle and be a grey man in your life. Never ever do it. Actually, it makes me feel like so emotional saying it, because you have a potential within yourself to achieve whatever you put your mind to. I just feel like I'm getting started. I'm 32 this month. I've never felt so excited. I've never felt so driven to just see what I can actually achieve in my life, and every single part of my life. It's so exciting. And yeah, it came down to doing the thing that I didn't want to do. It came down to just doing it and just being like, right, I'm going to write my own rules here. I'm going to create my own playbook, and that's exactly what I've done. So yeah, that is my story to being someone that came from a town where being a grey man was what you do. That's what you do. You don't do anything out of the ordinary. You live for the weekend. You just be someone that settles for average, and I just haven't done that. And I want to show more people that you can be ready for anything, and anything you put your mind to as well. If it's right, not other side. Sorry, yeah, ready for anything. Anyway, please hit subscribe to the channel. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. What really landed from this? What really resonated with you? Can you see parts of your story in this as well? Anyway, on that note, see you later, goodbye, and I hope you enjoyed, and welcome to my world.